posted yesterday. Quick little short on my YouTube and IG channels. The two trades that I was really looking at yesterday, especially for NFP, both of them were US dollar crosses, and both of them were just continuation plays that I was looking to take, right? I've been bullish on U-CAD for a while. Also been bearish, very bearish on GU, holding multiple short positions on it. But what I wanted to talk about was, we'll start with U-CAD, right? Because it's the actual one that I did take. Unfortunately, I didn't take GU simply because of the spread. But when we come over here and we take a look at U-CAD, right? Higher time frame, if we jump over here like a 12-hour or daily, what I'm looking at is still maintaining bullishness, right? And the reason I'm maintaining bullishness is because when we look at where we're at, right, we know that price ended up breaking this low right here, meaning that this is the leg. And we could see that price accumulated very nicely here. And from this price action, my anticipation is just reaccumulation, right? Continuing to come higher, because this is not in any area where I would see supply come into the market, right? Where I would be anticipating supply coming into the market is honestly going to be into this push right here, where we saw U-CAD just make a very, very bullish move to the upside, or into this area right here. And what I'd be targeting or looking at is price potentially between like the $1.33, $1.34 area already. Moving into like a more intraday time frame, when we see what price has done here, right? Again, we have the accumulation, okay, and we see that price. Mind my drawings because I just haven't updated a lot of the stuff here, but we can see that price gave an accumulation. Price ended up coming in, and it attempted a distribution, right? We have a three drive distribution here where price did show a sign of weakness. For me, that was my lower time frame BOS. And what do we do from there? We accumulated and then made a new high, right? So on that creation of that new high, for me, this was the very first stage of reaccumulation. All right. And then from there, what did price do? So if we measure out our entire push, right, price ends up coming in and giving us a one drive, a two drive down, and you can see my red line. My red line is our 80%. So price comes back into the 80% of this entire green dot, right? Green dot to green dot move. So once we did that, what I wanted to see was evidence of buying, and I wanted to see evidence of buying in here. So we do get an accumulation, right? We got an accumulation 2 weeks ago. And now, like looking into that price action, right? If we go down to like a 30-minute, right? We could see off this 30-minute, as price comes in, gives us that very, very clean type 1 accumulation, right? This being my shakeout. From there, what do? We see price give a attempted distribution, one drive, two drives down. We have our creek, and we accumulate in previous area of demand. And then what do? We make a new high. So following our market cycle, what am I anticipating? I'm anticipating us taking out this high right here. But more importantly, I'm anticipating us taking out the next high, right? The high that's actually maintaining our order flow within this leg, right? So we can see that we break here. All right, we do end up breaking here, but my target is above this high. I want to get above like that 29,500 area. And coming into this week, if we kind of just go down to more of a lower time frame, what I wanted to see price do was either we confirm a distribution, come back down. From there, we confirm a reaccumulation and make the new high, or just play the continuation play. All righty. So coming into a 5-minute chart, and you'll see like what I'm looking at here, you could just see over and over and over again, continuations of reaccumulation. All right. Again, what I wanted to see was, you could see our distribution, you could see price coming back into an area of demand. You could see that we make a new high. So essentially this is our order flow, right? But that's all it is order flow. For me, this holds no structure whatsoever, right? Because they're all reaccumulations. They're all continuation plays. So when price comes in on Thursday night for me, during Asian session, and sweeps this low, does that mean that I'm now looking for shorts? The answer is no, I'm not looking for shorts, right? All that to me is a break of order flow. And now I just need to see evidence of price showing that demand or buyers coming back into the market. So what is that evidence? Well, that evidence was an accumulation into a reaccumulation, right? Ultimately coming up, taking out our very important news candle, right, from Wednesday. And that was the big thing for me. I wanted to invalidate the manipulations from FOMC. Once price does that, okay, coming into Friday morning for me, which was the news, right, we have a very, very well put together distribution, right? Now, the question you have to ask yourself is, are you looking for shorts? And is there a reason for price to distribute? For me, there is not, right? So what I'm looking for is evidence of what? Of buyers coming into the market to take this as a reaccumulation. And, you know, did I get into this a little prematurely? I did, right? But the whole way I'm thinking just buy, buy, buy. I'm not anticipating any short sellers in this market. We have Asian liquidity sitting right here, right? We have a climax and a secondary test, right? Here's our rally. Here's a minor sign of weakness. Here's another secondary test. Here is another secondary test. So we have our 3 drive minimum. All we now need is what? We need a U-CAD. We need a shakeout or a manipulation. So coming into the news event, here is that pre-New York open in this price action right here. And when I see that we have a type 1 accumulation with a manipulation at a news event, and that manipulation is responsible for taking out Asian liquidity. Yes, you could have said that this was a major sign of weakness. Absolutely. All right. For me, though, I'm thinking buys the whole way. And the reason I'm thinking buys the whole way is because everything that we're seeing to the left, okay, not just what's in front of me here. So coming into the news event, we'll see that price ends up giving that type 1. Very, very, very clean type 1 with a manipulation. All right. I'll pull up here on the chart for you. So here is our type 1, right? You can, you'll be able to see that we had very, very clean at this point, type 2. This is why I don't trade type 2s. Price then goes from what? Gives us our manipulation. And in our manipulation here, this was the key. So we see that this is the news event. We see that then price gives us that manipulation, our spring. And then what I need us to do is break that high. So once we broke it, all right, now I'm just measuring. We know this is where they sold. This is where they bought. Measuring the whole move. This is 80% of it. Okay. Now, all I'm looking for is taking that trade off of that. This was a 6.4 pip stop. It's the best I can do, right? Price gives me the price action. That's the only thing I'm really going to be able to do is 6.4. Now, I did get into a lower time frame. And if we go down to show you here the 1 second, you get down into the 1 second time frame, there was a really clean type 1 schematic in here. And you'll see it here where price comes in, gives us a selling climax to a rally, to another secondary test, to an up thrust action, to another secondary test, to ultimately a spring, right? This being my spring. So as soon as we take out this high right here, I'm measured from here to here. Okay. And you'll see that this blue line is our 50%. I did have a limit order set out of that, but you could see price just doesn't come to that 50. What it does do is misses it by about half of a pip and then just takes off from there. And you can see this was my position that I had set right here, that 1 second. So no opportunity for me to get into that. However, I'm still sitting on this one entry that I did catch. And at this point, once I see that accumulation, I'm reducing my risk. I'm taking my stop loss from down here and moving it right to that 80% wick. So at least I've protected the equity I've got into this trade minus my spread. As soon as we take out this high, now I'm looking for a continuation play. I'm looking to see if I can get into this market again. Unfortunately, she never comes back to give me any kind of mitigation. And at this point where I'm going to partial, especially this being Friday, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to partial out and I'm going to take just a little bit of risk. And in this case, I paid myself the risk of the trade once we came up to this high up here. Okay. So as soon as price gives me that right there, I paid myself, it was at a 1 to 7.5 minus spread. I paid myself the risk because at this point here, we are still in an active distribution, right? However, in order for this to be a full distribution, we need a sign of weakness. And I'm not anticipating that sign of weakness. Overall, what's my target? I do want to get above this high up here. So you can see as price takes out that high, we get into this move, we take out that high. And this is where I ended up taking massive profits because one, it is Friday, and two, now what my anticipation is that we're going to get another pullback. So I took profits at 12910 for a 1 to 14. And you can just see on lower time frame, what was this doing? Just giving us reaccumulation after reaccumulation. I was looking to see if potentially I'd take an entry out of here if she came back in. That wasn't the case. Instead, she just ended up going higher, reaccumulating and reaccumulating. So this was the play I took on Friday. Again, super, super clean. Gave a moderate, I mean, nothing crazy, but a moderate 1 to 14. And moving over, the other one that I did take was GU. And again, looking at GU, I'm not going to go higher time frame because higher time frame, we are massively bearish, right? I was looking to see if we can get back up into these areas here of supply, which we were not able to. But what I was looking for was, okay, so what do we have, right? On this lower time frame coming into news, we could see that price gave an accumulation. That accumulation ultimately into a distribution. That distribution was responsible for the break. Okay. So as price made that break, what I wanted to see was can price come back into, and yes, I know it's Asian price action. So this is why there wasn't a limit for me. I want to see if price can come back into that area. And you can see right here, pre-New York Open, right around about an hour before New York Open, what do we get, right? So if I come here lower time frame, you're going to see that we get a really clean type 1 schematic, right? Beautiful type 1. We have a climax to a rally, which starts our trading range. We have a secondary test. We have another secondary test with an MSAL. We have a upthrust. That upthrust gives me that 50% retracement. And then we have our UTAD. And inside our UTAD, again, a micro type 1. So when I measured out the UTAD, right, we're at 50%, right? This was 50% of the UTAD. And this is where I wanted to take my entry. This is where I wanted to take a limit order out of that price action. So if I come over here, we're going to just play it out. And what happens, right? What I wanted to see, right? What I wanted to see was us come back into that price action. This would have been a 4.6 pip stop. And what do we get? Right at the news, boom. Right at the news, price comes in. I did not have this limit order set. I was honestly waiting it. I had it set in my position size calculator. It was ready. All I had to do was hotkey it. But unfortunately, the spread at the news doubled. It went from like 0.4 pips to almost like 2 pips on GU, something I was unable to take this trade. So at this point, when we're sitting here, right, what's the next play for me? Well, the next play for me is if we're just looking at this from our order flow, right, we know that price has now done this. I want now price to take out our reaccumulation that's sitting here. And you could see how I'm looking at this. So this was me. This is a screenshot from 8:35 in the morning, about 5 minutes after the news event came out. I'm simply just looking for price to come back into the 80% of our manipulation candle, right? We know this is where they bought at news. We know this is where they sold at news. So now this is just me waiting for price to come back into that area. All right. So we could see that we break. And there's our break, right? This was the break I wanted. I wanted to take out this reaccumulation. And now I want price to come back up. Okay, perfect. So now we're in that 80%. And you can see, right, we're still being maintained, right? We're still being maintained in this leg here. We now have this push, right? That breaks demand. And now we're just looking for price to come in here. And this was unfortunate because the time that this came in on a Friday, it's already 11:20 in the morning, my time, not something that I wanted to take, right? Could you have taken it? Yes, you could have. I mean, it did give off that 80%, right? Off that 80%, it was a 8.9 pip stop. Not something that I personally wanted to take, but on lower time frame, you could see what I was looking for, right? I mean, ideally, I'm looking for a distribution, right? Does price give a distribution? Yes, it does, right? Price did end up giving a distribution. If you go down to the 1 second, she's sitting right here. And unfortunately, I was no longer looking at the charts to take a trade, but here's your distribution, right? This being your schematic, right? This being your test. And ultimately, you could see that price ends up coming, and we'll go to a 15-second just so you could see it. You could see that price ends up playing out of this pretty nicely. It was just really, really unfortunate that this happens during our, it's unfortunate that this happens during our non-trading time. I was also interested in taking something out of this distribution. It just misses it. And then what was I looking for price to make this low so that we can come back into it? And I honestly just stopped looking right around here. You can see this was the last distribution that I was looking to play. But yeah, taps the 80 very nicely. And then from that 80%, what do we see? We see price just play off and end up about 36 pips from that point at a most of 48. So going forward, I mean, what's my anticipation on GU? Honestly, it's to look for price to now make this low, right? Make this low. And once we make that low, playing back into our area of supply where I'm going to continue the continuation move, right? Continue playing redistributions. At some point, we are going to give up the redistribution and we're going to break that order flow. And when we do break that order flow eventually, what am I going to do? Now I'm just going to sit on my hands and now revert back to a structure leg, right? I'm going to come back and I'm going to say, okay, so this still is 100% valid. And I'll be looking for price to come back in here. And this is the area, right? You can see my alert sitting here. This is the area that I'll be looking to short this from. So it was really unfortunate that the news just kept me out because it was a sell position. Obviously on news positions, buy positions are more advantageous because they're not susceptible to the broker manipulation to stop you out. It may keep you out of the trade, but it won't stop you out. Or on the sell side, you're going to get that. So I wanted to keep the video short. Hopefully this made sense. My thought process between U-CAD and GU. I typically on NFP days, I will, target, one or two pairs that I'm looking for entries based off of where they're currently at. And GU and EU-CAD were the two that I really focused on. So if you like the video, give me a like, subscribe to the channel if you want to get any notifications when I drop some more. And thanks for hopping on.